Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Yes, I'm appreciative that you did turn on the TV, that you found this channel, and let me introduce you to the real story. Yeah, my name is Daniel Hapney. Got a little something interesting for you today. Do you remember any Shopping Economics 101 if you went to school and they had like home ec or home, even accounting 101, any of the business classes, when you learned about marketing 101, and they told you of a term. The term was called bait and switch. And I say, come on in the store, we've got gold cups. We got gold cups at the best price you ever bought. This is Gold Cup Central. We got your cups here, they're gold. And then when you got to the store, you found out they had blue cups. Well, that's the only cups we sold out of the gold cups, but we have the really good deal on these blue cups that we've been trying to get rid of, but we couldn't get rid of last week. And the reason I mentioned bait and switch, it's a tactic or a term, sales thing, a marketing thing, to get you in so that then they could, lead you and direct you, just change you a little bit. They already knew you wanted a cup. That's why you're at the store, right? You need a cup. Well, in our case and stuff, what we have is we have a bait and switch going on with our terrorists. I know the terrorists we gave you originally, we don't have them anymore. We actually do. They're working in Libya right now. We call them rebels, the Al-Qaeda guys. But yeah, the bait and switch. What's the Department of Homeland Security doing when they're saying, well, our problem's not Al-Qaeda, it's blonde-haired, blue-eyed domestic terrorists is the new threat. We're told that Eric Holder, our Attorney General, he can't sleep at night because he tosses, he turns. He doesn't have that really good pillow or bed. His wife's poking him all the time. Anyway, he's tossing. Well, if he was Barney Frank, it wouldn't be his wife. But anyway, he's tossing, he's turning, he's saying, I can't sleep, domestic terrorism. I've got to worry about domestic terrorism. But then we find out that the underwear bomber was put on the plane by the U.S. State Department. And we find out that the Christmas tree would-be bomber out there in Oregon, he was given the stuff by the FBI. And the 93 World Trade Center bombing, they were given the materials and the detonators, and they even blew it. And that was all given to them by the FBI. And we find out that most of our, quote, terrorists were all funded by these FBI informant people running the militia over here, So, the bait and switch, and why I mention that is because what you're going to see, besides inflation in this country, is you're going to see that the Fatherland, Department of Homeland Security, they need to make you the enemy. You, the American citizen, you've got to be the new threat. That's why your children go through the airport like this, because you're the enemy. That's why we must squeeze your mother's genitals and your child's and all this, because they're the enemy. That's why they have to have naked body scans, because you are the enemy. Once again, they've switched the enemy from being this quasi-cave-dwelling, turban-wearing individual who we believe has a religious belief based on Allah or whatever, to now blonde-haired, blue-eyed Al-Qaeda. It's here in America. We got to watch out about, That's why we have a fusion center. Ask the Department of Homeland Security representative here in Sharon. We have one. He'll tell you that there's a fusion center and that the CIA, Cocaine Importation Agency, and the U.S. Army are spying on people in Massachusetts. Because once again, the people in Massachusetts are now the threat. Anyone who says, hey, we're being ripped off, they're bad. So here's how it goes. We're going to start off a little bit and we're going to start with, is the U.S. government planning on killing its own people, home and abroad? You say, how could it be? Well, the old man announced he was going to do it, so here you go. Here's Paul Craig Roberts. He was the number 2 at the Treasury under Reagan, so you might want to listen to him. He's been in the game.
Well, think your passport is a get-out-of-jail-free card? This isn't Monopoly, and jail isn't the only thing Americans abroad have to fear. It's also death, in some cases by their own government. The Obama administration is continuing a policy implemented by President George W. Bush that targets American citizens who are associated with terrorist groups abroad. The policy allows U.S. troops to capture and even kill Americans who are deemed a national threat. Among the many hats he wears, Paul Craig Roberts is a nationally syndicated columnist. He's in Panama City, Florida right now and joins us to talk about this very issue. Paul, let's start first with your thoughts on this.
Well, they may as well kill them abroad because they kill Americans at home. I suppose the world has forgotten about Ruby Ridge and Waco. In Waco, Texas, the United States government killed 100 Americans, women, children, men, with an assault on a religious compound. And they came in with tanks, poison gas. There were very few survivors, and the very few survivors were put on trial. In other words, the victims of the slaughter were put on trial. And this, you can look it up on Google or anywhere, Waco. It's a very famous slaughter of people by the United States government. It happened only a few years ago. During the Clinton administration, Janet Reno was the official in charge of this slaughter. And just prior to that, we had Ruby Ridge, where United States agents had tried to convince a person to serve as an informer, and he refused. And so they attacked his home. They killed his wife. They killed his 12 or 13-year-old son, the family dog. They shot a friend in the back, and they shot him. And so it's not unusual that the United States government kills its own citizens. They do it at home as well as abroad. In fact, back in the 1960s, there was a group of blacks called the Black Panthers, and they were opposed to the injustices that black people suffered from the police, and they made various protests, and they also were either assassinated or arrested and imprisoned. So the world has a very unusual idea about the United States. It's essentially a police state.
Well, Mr. Roberts, it's interesting that you bring these situations up. These were, of course, isolated incidents, but I mean, I can see the connection, but here's what I have to say about that. These are situations in which people were committing a crime and putting other people in danger. I mean, ever since the War on Terror became a household phrase, our nation's leaders have operated under the philosophy that they will capture and, if necessary, kill all terrorists who are threatening Americans.
But you see, the whole thing is a hoax. There were no terrorists in Waco.
Well,
These
but there were
just
people that were, you know, threatening other individuals, and they tried before they brought in the tear gas. They tried before.
No, there's no evidence of any. In fact, there are no charges that these people were threatening anyone. Randy Weaver at Ruby Ridge, no one has ever charged him with threatening anyone. In fact, the state of Idaho, where his wife and child was murdered, actually brought murder charges against the government agents who had killed them. And so, no, you're completely wrong. There's no evidence. No one has ever said, not even the United States government, which lies through its teeth every
All right,
time
but we're not talking about Waco, though. I mean, let's talk about what we're talking about, which is the fact that there are, what if Americans, I mean, don't you think it's important to national security that the U.S. government have a zero tolerance policy for anyone planning to hurt Americans, no matter where they were born?
If you believe the United States government.
I mean,
look, the Russians. Did the Russians believe Stalin when Stalin told the Russian people that all the heroes of the Bolshevik Revolution were capitalist spies? He executed Bukharin, Kamenev, all of them. Everyone who had made the Bolshevik Revolution was executed by Stalin as capitalist spies. He sent assassins to murder Trotsky, who had won for the Bolsheviks the Civil War. Now, do you believe that? If you believe that, you might as well believe the United States government, because they tell the same kind of lies.
All right, Paul Craig Roberts, as usual, we thank you. Mr. Roberts is a nationally syndicated columnist.
So yeah, no habeas corpus. We said you're guilty. No judge, no jury, no trial. We'll just assassinate you because we're your government. And by the way, are you threatening us? Do you want a change in your government? You must be a terrorist. Anybody who wants change is a terrorist. They did pass, the Patriot Act 2, the Military Commissions Act. Should I tell you about no jury of your peers? Should I tell you about torture? Remember when they sold you torture? Because this is the new America. What made you think it was yours? I forgot to tell you, you're the terrorist. Wake up to that, would you? Okay, here you go. Here's another one for you. This is the homeland becomes the Fatherland. Yeah. Yeah, it's awful funny. When they started Department of Homeland Security, who was in it? Chertoff, okay, and who else? Marcus Wolf. There's some homework. Did Marcus Wolf work for the Stasi before? Anyway, here's a little bit. Tell me what you think.
He has picked very public battles. Now, former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura is taking on the TSA after he says he was sexually assaulted at an airport checkpoint.
As I've stated in past reports, the TSA is the new front line in the war on freedom, and Jesse Ventura is just one American who has drawn his line in the sand. But how did we get here? Why is America going down this path? Over the weekend, while recovering from a horrible chest cold, I found myself captive to the History Channel watching Third Reich, The Rise. I have to admit there is something captivating about watching a modern civilized nation fall into total destruction at the hands of one man. When you study Adolf Hitler, his policies, speeches, and political tactics, you cannot help but walk away wondering how he could have taken advantage of so many people so easily. Let's take a look together. The German people were the perfect victims, ever seeking solutions to their problems. The temperature was perfect for them to hand over all of their trust and faith to their government. Their economy was destroyed, millions were unemployed, and the Germans were printing money to pay off their war debt and to pay the workmen of the Ruhr region who were on strike against French occupation. After the Reichstag fire, Hitler convinced the German people that the communists were behind the act. This statement pushed the German people to demand safety and security of their government. The burning of the Reichstag was intended to be a signal for a bloody uprising and civil war. Large-scale pillaging in Berlin was planned. It has been determined that throughout Germany, acts of terrorism were to begin against prominent individuals, against private property, against the lives and safety of the peaceful population, and general civil war was to be unleashed. As a result, German President Paul von Hindenburg, by decree, dissolved essential freedoms of the German people. The decree stated, "The Constitution of the German Reich is suspended until further notice. It is therefore permissible to restrict the rights of personal freedom, habeas corpus, the freedom of opinion, including the freedom of the press, the freedom to organize and assemble, the privacy of postal, telegraphic, and telephonic communications, warrants for house searches, orders for confiscations, as well as restrictions on property are also permissible beyond the legal limits otherwise prescribed." Hitler would soon be granted chancellorship, and all dissenting voices and races would be rounded up for torture and execution in the Nazi death camps, and preemptive wars of aggression would be waged to protect the fatherland. Why is this important? Where is America now? Will we share the same fate? The parallels between Germany in the 1930s look like a reflection of America today. This is a fact that you must accept. I don't care what side of the aisle you sit. The facts don't change. Today, nearly 15 million people are unemployed in America. Banks on Wall Street and worldwide are being given money from the Federal Reserve printing press. Those on unemployment continue to receive checks from an empty treasury, and the rights we once cherished as a nation have been surrendered because of America's Reichstag fire, September 11th. America's invisible enemy is not communism, but terrorism. Since October 26, 2001, when the Patriot Act became law by George W. Bush, each one of us has lived under the all-seeing eye of the Department of Homeland Security. Our mail can be opened, our phones tapped, our houses searched, and our bodies stripped and papers checked at air travel checkpoints, and continuity of government programs are in place to round up dissenting voices. Did Obama change a thing? Hell no! The Bush policies march forward under Bush's Fed chairman and his Secretary of Defense. And now, continuing to take cues from the playbook of the Nazi Party, the Department of Homeland Security has put out their own propaganda reels, asking you to suspect everyone and everything around you, making everyone a terrorist.